My name is Jonathan Derby. I'm the Executive Director for the Center for Justice and Reconciliation at Point Loma Nazarene University. So welcome. We're very excited for this discussion today. We have a group of practitioners, people who are working on the ground in human trafficking prevention education. And so they're going to be sharing with us today, serving on a panel to discuss with us their experiences on the ground. So thank you for our speakers, our panelists. It takes a lot of work to prepare for these presentations, so we really appreciate you doing that and for presenting today. So thank you. Really quick, a little bit about HT Radar. HT Radar, it's like a lot of other things that have happened in San Diego County around countering human trafficking. It was started very organically and at a grassroots level. So a group of practitioners, of researchers came together, and they just wanted to have discussions around issues that were important to them in combating trafficking so they can learn from one another and be able to apply it into their work. So that's how HT Radar started, and that's really what the purpose is. It's rooted, though, in, if we can change the slide, it's rooted in the Research and Data Subcommittee, which is one of 10 subcommittees under the Human Trafficking and CSEC Advisory Council. So it was kind of birthed in that. We're part of the HT Advisory Council. The Center for Justice and Reconciliation, we coordinate these HT Radar meetings. So they happen twice a year. We have one in the fall, and this is the one in the spring. Our CJR Senior Research Associate, Dr. Carly Ritchie-Zavaleta, she's the co-chair for the subcommittee. We have subcommittee meetings once a quarter. And so we do want to invite you to those meetings. We have flyers on the table if you want to come. The next meeting is going to be on May 8th, right here in Balboa campus from 10 to 11:30 a.m. So please come to that if you can join that. The HT Radar meetings also just take a lot of time to coordinate. And so I do want to highlight Dr. Carly and her team for all of the work that they have put into coordinating this event today. So Dr. Carly Isabel Gutierrez, who you'll hear from in a little bit, Marissa Salgado, and others on the team have done a lot of work to put this together. So thank you for that. Some other things that CJR does as far as within the research realm is we produce research briefs once a quarter as well. In fact, we released a research brief on human trafficking prevention education this past November. And so we interviewed for that brief some of the speakers and panelists today, in fact, for that brief. But this meeting, it flows from that research brief. So we also do a newsletter on a quarterly basis where we compile information about events, webinars, funding opportunities that are of interest to people who are in the counter or anti-human trafficking sector, and we send those out quarterly. You can find all of these resources at the HT Radar website. So if you do a search on HT Radar in San Diego, that should come up. We also encourage you to go and get on the email distribution list where you will receive a lot of emails about news that is applicable to you. You can go to the HT Advisory Council website and just sign up there and put your email address in there. Yeah?
They also have QR codes for some of the literature on at the tables. So.
Yeah, so thanks, Carly. Yeah, there'll be a lot of QR codes, so go ahead and things that might interest you, please scan it in. But a lot of the past research briefs that we've done, information, like I mentioned, about the next Research and Data Subcommittee. In a few minutes, we're going to have our first set of speakers come up and share with us. They are in the human trafficking prevention education in school. They work in that area, especially at a policy level. So Ms. Marjorie Saylor, Ms. Heather Namor, and Ms. Violeta Mora are going to be joining us. But first, I would like to introduce CJR's very own Isabel Gutierrez, who's going to be sharing some of the key findings from that prevention education human trafficking brief that I mentioned earlier. So Isabel, please come. Thanks, everybody.
Great. Thank you, thank you. I will just say thank you, Jonathan, for saying my name correctly as Gutierrez. All right, Spanish speakers will definitely appreciate that. But yeah, like what he was saying, I just wanted to share some key findings that our team has found in our literature brief that we published back in the fall about youth prevention education programs. So if we want to go to the next slide. So I just want to briefly share in our background section of the research brief, why is prevention important? Well, prevention is a key part of counter-trafficking work, and it's actually a part of the 4P framework that the U.S. has been following since 2012, when they really started to advocate and promote the development of educational materials for youth in the counter-trafficking work. And primary prevention, for example, if you did not know the definition of it, it is interventions and programs to stop, we can go back to thank you. It's interventions and programs to stop injury, or in this case, human trafficking, from happening in the first place. And an example of that is education for youth and those who are also vulnerable to human trafficking. And that includes those who are experiencing poverty, homelessness, history of abuse, and runaway status, and minority groups. Go to the next slide, please. And also what we have found in the literature, and we just adapted this from a lot of the research and the evidence that we're pulling from, and we just wanted to show this framework and some approaches within that framework. And what we found is it's important for education for youth to follow a trauma-informed and human rights framework. And what that looks like is, for example, acknowledging potential triggers for youth, and within that pool of students and other people that we are connecting with, that can also include some potential victims. So we wanted to make sure that we are, or those who are doing those educational programs are providing trigger warnings. And within that framework, we also have some approaches, survivor-centered. And what that looks like is inviting survivor voices to be involved in the implementation and also the development process of those. And the other approach is also youth-centered. We want to make sure we are relevant with the times and meeting those students where they are at, and especially when in San Diego, if there are some groups in schools that are in communities with higher risks. So if you want to go to the next slide. And some key recommendations that our literature brief was found. First is having a variety of learning modalities, and that's really important. That's why it's highlighted there. Having a variety of different types of programmings to, again, meet the students where they're at. And we're going to hear from a couple of speakers who are in that education curriculum that have just a variety of ways that they provide that education. So yeah, develop, and implement a variety of learning modalities with community. We found that it's important to offer educational workshops for parents, caregivers, school administrators, and any other members of the community that interact with youth. And also having diverse participation, expanding the education to a wider range of students, including kindergarten all the way up to 12th grade, and also in the college level. And next, in the institutional level, offering trainings for teachers and school administrators on how to address and discuss trafficking. So those are the key recommendations. And if you want to go to the next slide, thanks, Riley. Another QR code. So if you wanted to read the full research brief of how we really went into the depths of that, you can scan the QR code. We would love for you guys to read and engage with that literature brief. So thank you guys for listening, and I'm going to invite Marjorie Saylor up here.
Woohoo, Marjorie.
Thank you. Okay, so I've been involved in a lot of things around human trafficking and human trafficking prevention, and the last few years I've been getting more involved in policy and promoting legislation or pushing back on legislation that would be harmful to primarily survivors of human trafficking. In the past couple of years, I've gotten more involved in trying to implement prevention education legislation. So legislation that mandates prevention education in schools. We have some of that already. We'll talk about that as we go through the slides. But just to kind of give you a little bit of background as to what I've been doing and where this has all been generated. So the next slide, please. It's hard to see. Okay, thank you. So federally, we have what's known as Title IX, which primarily applies to college level education, but it does also apply to K through 12 in certain like in respects to, you know, protecting pregnant and parenting teens, any school that's receiving federal funding. It's primarily addressing sexual harassment, sex-based harassment, and in 2024, so this was implemented in 1972, but in 2024, Title IX was amended to also include gender identity protections against gender identity harassment. But then also January 2025, that was just stricken out. So it was amended back to what it was before. So this, again, is for primarily college level. And we've talked to congressmen for changing this to include K through 12. And a lot of them come back to us and they're, you know, saying this is going to be really expensive to do. So a lot of them push back on it. That's not what they want on their agenda for that year or whatever. But this is a work in progress to try and amend this. And there's another amendment too. We'll talk about that more. So according to some of the state level mandates, we're going to look at California and Florida primarily on this list. But Texas requires human trafficking prevention education for students in 6th through 12th grade. New York also mandates school districts provide prevention education related to human trafficking. California, our state, however, we have a program mandate for 7th through 12th grade, right? And this was a recent mandate, 2018, still new, still pretty much in its it takes several years to implement these laws. But it requires K through 12 schools to teach human trafficking prevention starting at 7th grade. And it's incorporated into comprehensive sexual health and HIV prevention education. And our students are supposed to get this in middle school at least once and in high school at least once. It also includes instruction on training the educators into identifying and being able to intervene, and also providing case management services to victims. They have a focus on interagency collaboration, and that includes local educational agencies in the multidisciplinary team that serve primarily CSEC youth. And it mandates the County Office of Education's participation in developing interagency protocols, participating in the commercially sexually exploited children program. And this, in my opinion, is where the mandate is a little weak within this policy, because counties can opt out. So it's not all counties that are, counties have the choice to opt in and out related to funding. So if they don't have enough funding set aside for this, they're able to opt out. So in my opinion, and we'll get more into this and we go into recommendations, we want to see more of a stronger mandate for the state of California. Some examples of the programs is that some schools have implemented drama-based and student-centered human trafficking prevention curricula to educate youth. And there are several agencies that have come together and created curriculum. But Three Strands Global in particular is written into our state law here in California. The curriculum that they have called Project Protect, it's recognized by the state, and they actually have the ability to implement this for K through 12 and college level, right? So why our state only chooses 7th through 12th? That's another issue, right? When we have the ability, and it's also a curriculum that's recognized by the state. So now going to Florida, This is very, very new. It's been maybe about a year that this has been implemented in the state of Florida. And they're the first state to require it for K through 12. And so what we're seeing is that they do have educational content that is in their curriculum. So it's not just being brought in for student assemblies or, hitting different groups. It's hitting all the students, or at least it's supposed to. It's within the curriculum. Starting out at K through 5, they have curriculum that is, it's electronic, so they're watching it, these little 15, 20-minute videos, and they're little modules. So they're seeing multiple stories played out in these videos. But some of the feedback that we're getting, and of course, okay, thank you. And of course, it's only been implemented for about a year or so. But some of the feedback that we're getting for these littles is they're not able to reiterate what they're learning. They're not, so some of the parents are concerned that they're even understanding this, but the huge plus is that they are getting it K through 12, they're getting it in middle school, they're getting it in high school at different levels. So next slide, please. You're going to hear from some of the people here in the state that do provide some of these curriculums, but this is an overview of some of the curriculums available. And we have also another one that's a national organization called the K through 12 Human Trafficking Education Curriculum. I'll leave out some of the others because you'll hear from them today for the sake of time. And then in Virginia, we have the first state to implement college-level human trafficking prevention education in the orientation process. So every student's getting it. Here in our state, we have, thank you, we have, it's in human sexuality, it's in some women's psychology, but not all students are getting these courses, right? And my time is up. So what I would like to see overall is that for our state particularly, we have a stronger mandate. It's in the curriculum, it's built into it, it's K through 12 included, and we also see at the college level that implementation for the orientation process. Thank you.
Thank you, Marjorie. And now I would like to invite up Violetta and Heather to come on up here and share a little bit more diving into prevention education. So let's give them a hand.
Thank you. Oh, wait. Does this work or should I use this? This one? Okay. All right. Thank you. Good morning, afternoon, everybody. I'm Heather Namor, Coordinator for Student Wellness and School Culture at our San Diego County Office of Education. And my co-presenter today is Violetta Mora. All right. And you all know her. She's a superstar. I'm a little newer to the world of human trafficking. We do a lot of work in our county supporting our schools around mental health, suicide prevention, and positive school climate. So we do it all. But just want to give you an overview of San Diego and our schools and what that looks like. So you can see up here in our county, we have 43 school districts. And that means 43 different kingdoms, 43 different school boards, 43 different policies, protocols, procedures, which equates to, 128 charter schools who all operate very uniquely and differently as well. And this equates to about 780 schools that we have in our county. And our schools look very different depending on the resources they have, the staffing that they have, the funding that they have, and so forth. So our role at San Diego County Office of Education is to be of service and support our 780 schools. And sometimes there's a misconception that San Diego County Office of Ed has authority over our schools and districts, but we don't. We can't tell them what to do, but we can certainly support them and be responsive to their needs and be proactive. So we'll talk a little bit more about that, but just wanted to set the landscape of our schools in our county and our role at County Office of Education. I'm headed to Violeta.
Right.
I'm getting tangled.
Okay. So one thing that we created was this histogram, because a lot of times it's like, oh, the work seems new because there's always, new people in the effort. But we really wanted to give just a little bit of a background. As you can see here, a lot of the work, and this is not just County Office of Ed, this is like our partners, everyone from Child Welfare, Probation, the DA's office, everyone. From what we could gather, the work, a lot of this work began back in 2007. And around that time, it really started in the East County, and many times, a lot of work around LEAs or schools, it happens around grants. And that's an opportunity because you have a grant, you're working with all your different partners. And what really grew out of different grant opportunities at that time in East County, because of that partnership, just people were at a curfew sweep. And then seeing that curfew sweep, CSEC was identified as an issue. So, you can only imagine you're there at a Friday night, you're a part of this, and you're stuck with that. What just happened on Friday night? So all these partners together and gather, that conversation kind of just kind of festered. So what really started at that time was also training. Saw the need of these are high school students. They're getting picked up for prostitution during that time on a Friday night. And so the awareness training really began with all these different partners. And as you can see here, the whole timeline thing with around 2011, please correct me if I'm wrong, is when the CSEC Advisory Council was established. And then there's the legislation, and Marjorie went over some of the legislation, like the AB 1227 around 2018. Prior to that, in 2014, was AB 1432, which required mandatory reporters to have annual child abuse training. Child abuse training. And then in 2016, Amanda, correct me if I'm wrong, that's when you identified commercial sexual abuse as part of the legal definition of child abuse. So it's really important. So a lot of times it's you are still educating schools to, when we talk about human trafficking, CSEC, it's child abuse. So yes, you do report child abuse. That is child abuse. So then there's some other legislation that has, that's come out 2019, 2020, AB 1861. That's, how social media is used in recruitment tactics for human trafficking. And then SB 1104, that's where LEAs are required to provide information to parents on the methods of human trafficking prevention, so giving that information out. And then COVID hit. So what we really want to work on is getting the information out to parents more. And so we've grown our education subcommittee, more LEAs, more school districts are part of that. And I mean, that's really, I feel like that's something that we really want to work on. The HT protocol, we have a slide about that and some other things here. But I will, yeah. Oh gosh, I got the.
Okay, that's a hard one to do in a short amount of time. So this is an infographic we put together, really that stemmed from a survey that we put out to all of our middle and high schools in our 43 districts. And we wanted to know, of those schools, who was doing training for students, training for staff, and also who had protocols in place. So you can see here in the big pink circles, 75% of our secondary LEAs responded. And out of them, we see that 74% provide training to students, 93% provide training to staff, and then 70% reported having human trafficking protocols in place, which is not a legislative requirement. So we're pretty happy about that 70%, and we're working hard to get that to 100. In that survey, we also said, if you don't have protocols in place, don't have training in place, please reach out. We are here to support you. And Violetta and I did some one-on-ones with some districts. So this is an ongoing developmental process. Also, 100% of our districts received the human trafficking prevention recommended protocols for schools. So all our superintendents received that. And the trainings Violetta was talking about, we do the multidisciplinary trainings. You could see 88% of our districts are represented at those trainings. Whew. All right, I feel like I'm Academy Awards.
All right,
for these.
so what I wanted to add, because the protocol, it was sent out to all superintendents in 2018. What the biggest thing was, you're doing this training, you're doing all this awareness training, and so there needed to be at least a recommended protocol. We can't tell you have to have a protocol, but you should, And what's nice is that we made it fillable, so that way it's like, the first page is the whole, if you identify, if you think, or if you know for sure, this is a recommended protocol. But the second page is really about who are your contacts. Do you have a child welfare contact? Do you have a law enforcement contact? The service providers, who can you connect with? Because a lot of times it's like, I want to help, but who, I can only do so much at school, but who can I refer to? I know.
Sorry, not me. All right, in 0 minutes, I'll talk about the next slide. So this is super exciting. It's coming soon. We have a policy to practice toolkit for schools, and this is in response to what our districts are saying they need. We don't have time to research and vet and figure this out. This is a hands-on, at a glance, grab what you need with all replicable tools and templates. And our education subcommittee is focusing our efforts right now on implementing, putting a plan together to implement this across our county with our schools.
All right, and I do need to give a shout out to Charisma, the little is everybody knows Charisma, because that draft is like, like her. I mean, we have to replicate Charisma. So we do, the Charisma created the draft, and we're working through that, and hopefully we'll get that out and training. Okay, all right.
You ladies did it. Congratulations. Awesome. So we're going to move into a time of panelist discussions. But before we go into the actual panel, I just want to introduce our awesome and highly esteemed panelists. And they're going to present really briefly just about their programs that they represent. So as I introduce, perhaps if you all want to come and have a seat. But first, we have Catherine from Imagine. So let's give a round of applause. And Catherine, you can stay up here because you're going to present this second. Yeah, you can just present, or stay up here for a second. And then we have Chris from Global Community. So I'm going to invite them up if you would like to have a seat here at the table. And then we have Katie Tanner from Three Strands. Round of applause, round of applause. And then we have Ebony from the No More program. Awesome. So I'm going to hand it over to Catherine, and she's just going to present a little about Imagine.
Next slide. Hello, everyone. Yes, my name is Catherine Hannah Schrock. I am the co-founder and director of programs for Imagine. We are an applied theater company, which means that we use theater and multidisciplinary arts to engage learning, development, creating human connection. And one of our topics is human trafficking, but we actually engage a number of different topics as well. So I'm also the creative designer of Zion Story, which is Imagine's theater-based human trafficking prevention program. We like to call ourselves sister programs to the No More program. And the program is designed for youth and intergenerational groups. It launched in 2022 and developed in partnership with lived experience experts, Jessica Kim and Keelan Washington, who many of you probably know. Next slide. So Zion Story falls under the umbrella of a broader program that we have, which is called the Play Youth Development Theater Program. And what that is a TK to 12th grade program with a focus on social and emotional learning using theater and creativity. We use live theater, we use in-class workshops, we do school tour shows and programming. We're in school, we're after school. It's constantly trying to address the needs of the current youth mental health situation. Next slide. It was developed in response to the persistent youth mental health crisis, which I would imagine many of you are familiar with. What is the backdrop of the existing situation of our youth right now? Youth are experiencing increased global environmental and socio-political instability and conflict, maybe now more than ever. Social media and online communication, diminishing meaningful socialization, excessive gaming and online exposure, creating health and safety risks, increased school and community violence, anxiety, insecurity, continued impact from COVID also. Children still trying to regain skills, experiencing isolation, loneliness. So when we developed Zion Story, we thought, how can we really engage a number of different topics using theater that are also very much intersecting with the vulnerabilities of human trafficking, but they talk about other things too. So Zion Story as a play, I'll tell you more about the implementation shortly. It talks about a number of topics. It talks about friendship and what does it mean to be loyal and aware of our friends. We look at substance abuse as her friends start vaping and she's kind of grappling with that. We look at consent and boundaries in specific moments, gaming and phone addictions, communication with adults, how to ask for help, how to ask for support. We also have this underlying invitation for children to go out and play and be in nature. So Zion's roots, she grew up in the forest playing, and there's a backdrop of that question of what if we can go back to doing more of that in our lives, and how would that support protective factors to trafficking even. So all the while, we're also integrating the risk factors and the warning signs of trafficking. So, okay, actually the slide before that, is there a slide before that? Yeah, just to mark the way the program implements, it's starting to expand, but in its core, it implements in 4 parts. We do a PD for adults, an HT 101 for about 75 to 90 minutes, led by our lived experience experts. We then go into the classroom once for a pre-show lesson. We go into multiple classrooms. We usually serve 1 grade at a time. Then we have a live interactive theater assembly, which is a role play based theater process. Then we go back to the classroom again and we do a post-show lesson. So it's 4 parts with adults and youth included, but especially when we work with our high-risk youth, we're starting to extend those programs, and also with support from the County Office of Education and with input and from the county. So we actually are starting this year to do a 9-session implementation in SDRTPs or group homes, foster care facilities. We're doing a 15-session in our juvenile court and community schools in the North County region specifically, and also Monarch schools. So we're able to do a lot more, and we do these like somatic experiencing activities, and we talk about collaboration, we talk about well-being in a variety of ways. So just a little bit about the highlights of, this is actually last year's report, which we're only in our 3rd year, so we don't have this year yet because we're about to start. But last year's report gives a good sample of what we had the year before even. So we run for just about 3 to 5 weeks in general, our programs do, 1 time a year. And so last year we saw 1,677 youth and 230 adults. We also measured SEL, and which is social emotional learning, and we measured HT. So in the area of HT, we saw a 20% increase in human trafficking learning. We also saw that 78 of 1,677 children turned in response cards indicating that they wanted to speak to someone further. They had a question for themselves or a peer. We leave those with their counselors at their school site so that they can continue to take action. And it was kind of a pleasant surprise to see how much growth we saw in social emotional learning. This was just from 3 times spending time with them doing interactive theater. We asked them questions like, I feel hopeful about my life. I feel confident to express my ideas. I feel connected to my peers. I think it's important to support people who are struggling. And we saw a significant increase just in that little bit of time from pre to post in those SEL areas as well. So we do have an open rehearsal on Monday, April 14th. We'd love to have you come to see the interactive play portion. We welcome guests to classes if you're trying to sort of check out what we do in class also, pre-show, post-show lessons. We're projected, we start on April 9th, we're projected to see 2,000 young people this time around. And that's all I have, and I'm totally out of time.
Thank you, Catherine. Thank you. If you would like to have a seat. Now I would like to invite up Chris from Global Communities to come on up. So let's give them a round of applause.
Hi everyone, my name is Chris Lacroixmal, I use they, them pronouns, and I am here speaking before you as part of the Project Roots team within Global Communities. Just a little blurb about Global Communities. We operate within San Diego and around the world with our San Diego work encompassing perinatal care to within Black maternal health, and our human trafficking prevention education program with Project Roots. We were previously known as Project Concern International, or PCI. So if, just in case anybody is aware of PCI. But Global Communities has continued to provide humanitarian assistance, sustainable development, and financial inclusion since 1952. Next slide. Oh, this slide. Okay, so to provide a little bit of context with Project Roots, it is a program that addresses the root causes of intimate partner violence, exploitation, including sex trafficking. We build up protective factors in youth by providing them with safe spaces to talk, to express their feelings, and learn about boundaries, and to just be. Typically, our program runs around 10 weeks long in community and school spaces with youth from ages 8 to 18. And we are trauma-informed and utilize an evidence-based curriculum to get through to our kids. But before I discuss our impact, I would like to introduce two participants with their names changed for their confidentiality. Our first is Isaiah. Isaiah experiences housing instability. He has moved 6 times within 2024 alone. He has friends that he cares for, however, his friends are gang involved. So the examples that he has in expressing his care are very limited. He's often late to school, sometimes skips, and when he is present, he falls asleep in class. Our second student is, or participant is Kayla. Kayla is a participant who lives at home with her grandparents. Her mother is sick and recently has been admitted to the ICU. Kayla is not sure how to express her grief surrounding her mother's illness, so she lashes out in class and in her after-school programs. She's been suspended from school for physical altercations and often lashes out to her friends as well. Kayla is in the 5th grade. Both of these participants possess risk factors that may lead to their exploitation in their futures. Next slide. So our programming activities are based on the principles of empathy, and power, and equality. This is so that our participants can understand themselves and those around them, have the knowledge and ability to identify and communicate their needs, and learn to advocate for themselves in all situations. The participants of Project Roots really know more about themselves than they think. They are aware of what it looks like to have someone make them feel uncomfortable or someone cross their boundaries. However, they have not been given the space or the skills to voice or understand their power in an effective way. In his participation of Project Roots, I have learned that Isaiah himself has a passion for drawing. He loves to be creative, and he has the space to do so within Project Roots sessions. He contributes to conversations and participates in programming while drawing, and is currently thinking about his future and has goals of learning coding, graphic design, and having his drawings be part of a video game that he creates himself. So if anybody has any connections that I can pass along to him, that would be great. I have also noticed changes in Kayla's behavior that have led her to communicate more and react less when she's feeling dysregulated. She is empowered in knowing that she can opt out of any part of our sessions that may be activating for her, and volunteers now to help me with part of programming with, things such as passing out materials and even offering her very valuable thoughts and ideas. Next slide. These are only two examples of our impact. We do have an infographic with more numbers, but we have documented our impact over the last 10 years that we have served youth in our communities. However, the impact that I notice within the sessions that I facilitate is what I'm most proud of. With regard to Isaiah and Kayla, these are critical steps forward for them to know how to protect themselves and reduce their vulnerabilities to exploitation in their futures. We wouldn't see this impact in one-off trainings. It takes sustained, consistent contact and connection, as well as collaboration with our community partners in order to make sure that the youth that we serve are safe within their communities and know how to keep themselves safe in their future. Thank you.
Awesome. Now I'm going to invite up Katie from Three Strands. Sorry, it's a little trafficky. We're in San Diego. We're used to traffic. So. Hello. All right. Do I start with 6 minutes? Correct. Okay. 5 minutes. Okay. Perfect. Just want to make sure I got all my notes here. Awesome. Hello. My name is Katie Tanner, and I am the implementation manager for Three Strands Global Foundation. We have a few different programs, but the main one I'll be talking about today is Protect. If you want to go to the next slide. Okay, so this presentation is just going to be broken down into what we do, how we do it, and our impact. So AB 1227, Marjorie did a great job of already explaining that, so I don't need to really go into that, but Three Strands Global Foundation was part of, they sponsored that bill, and there's a whole story as to why we did that, why we chose to advocate for educating students in schools, but I don't have time for that story today. Yeah, so our Protect curriculum is AB 1227 compliant. So it is regulated by the state, but also federally as well. We are federally approved. We're in several different states and part of the H-type grants, which was Project Safe. We were part of that grant that ended last year. And what else? So we educate students on exploitation, their rights, and how to seek help through age-appropriate and culturally responsive programs. And that is, actually, if you want to go to the next slide. Oh, no, I'm sorry. I went to the wrong one. So now going into innovation, we know that we have our developing programs. Sorry, my notes. I went from my computer to this. Yeah, so developing protocols. So we have the protocols here. We also, Charisma is incredible. It's incredible at creating protocols. And we have taken a lot of what we've learned in San Diego. We've also adapted it and provided that for our partners all over the nation. And so that is something that is so important. So we do partner together with other local agencies to help create and develop protocols in their schools. And then innovation. We recognize that not every, we have Protect, which is started in the school setting, but we have other needs, and we found ourselves constantly adapting the Protect program to fit the needs of our audience. And so because of that, we decided to develop some other programs. So we have Protect Teen, which is like a direct-to-student model of our Protect program, so great for homeschoolers. We also have Brave, which is for direct service providers, so those who are case managers, client advocates, those who work directly with individuals, as well as Rise, which is those who work with system-impacted youth. And so we have a few different grants with juvenile justice organizations and partnership with them. And then we have Aware, which is for youth leaders and college students. And then Care, which is our parent and caregivers, and that's like online. So at your own, they can access that on their own. And we also developed an HT 101 online because we have an HT 101 to 103, which is about a 2-hour training. But we know that just somebody in the community might want to know about human trafficking. So we offer that online as well as HT 101 for Rotarians and some other programs. And then, yeah, I mentioned the developing protocols. If you want to go to the next slide. All right, so how we do it. We are our best practices and guiding principles are that we are evidence-based and trauma-informed, and that we meet our partners where they are. This is very important to us. We also are focused on prevention education, multi-sector collaboration. We don't want to do this alone. So we also develop all of our content with over a dozen survivors or lived experience experts. We all have a seat at the table. There are several survivors on our team and speak into our program and our curriculum to ensure that what we are sharing and what we're teaching is something that is going to be really relevant. We understand that language choice matters. So we use person-centered, non-stigmatizing language. We don't come in trying to scare students and trying to scare parents and caregivers and staff, but we offer empowerment and solutions and scenarios for them to build that. And then we also are culturally responsive and accessible, so we adapt programs to meet cultural needs, or diverse cultural backgrounds and learning styles for everyone. So we try to create something that can be applicable for everyone. We also want to embrace that we talk about implicit biases versus explicit biases. We all have implicit biases, and so when we teach this curriculum, that's something that we really need to take part in, so we talk about that with staff. If you want to go to the next slide. Our impact. So we have pre and post surveys that we provide for staff, as well as in all of our curriculum. And we've gathered thousands of quantitative data points and measure our program's effectiveness. We want to know, how is this working? Is this actually working? What do we need to change? To date, we've trained over 134,000 adults, 130,000 students, and we've gathered 43,000 stories. So we also gather qualitative data that we're able to then, using AI and levity, we are able to transform our qualitative data into quantitative data. And so I'm not sure if you're able to see some of those, but just some of that is after completing Liberty. That 97% of stories containing one or more of these topics and 73% of these stories containing two or more of these topics, that there is increased knowledge, increased awareness, recognition of signs, and intended change behavior. So saying, now because of this, I will do something after. So I think that's it.
Thanks, Katie. And last but certainly not least, I'm going to invite our last panelist, Ebony, to come talk about No More.
All right. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Ebony Robinson. I am the new program manager for the No More program since November. So I'm going to talk a little bit about the history, how many students we have reached, about our program being survivor-informed, and our self-reporting process. So for the history in regards to No More, it had launched back in 2016 with a collaborative, multidisciplinary team effort with the creation, edit, and review with people like Catherine, Katie, as well as Charisma and other survivors and other key players in San Diego County. No More is a theater-based program as well, prevention program for human trafficking. The main objective is to provide students with awareness and education on what their vulnerabilities are, what a recruiter or trafficker tactics may be, safety, social safety, online safety, in addition to activities where students are able to identify what red flags are, what they see in Danny and Desiree, who are actually friends of Amanda. So this is a play where we show students how a person can easily become a victim of human trafficking over a course of 8 months, just in 8 months, in 20 minutes, we show this play. During that 20-minute play, there's two friends, Danny and Desiree, where they show how they are involved, I'll say, being friends or lack of being friends to Amanda. So we ask that the students focus on Danny and Desiree, because what we do believe is that peer-to-peer advocacy is really big. We believe that students teach each other things. I believe that students teach each other things quicker than we may teach them from a parent or authoritative figure to a student. So we believe that as they begin to advocate for themselves and speak up for themselves and be upstanders upstanders in the issue, that they're able to spread the information faster. Let's see here. Amanda is our main character, and her story is a compilation of multiple survivor stories in addition to the research study done here at Point Loma Nazarene University and University of San Diego. We teach our students to be not bystanders, but upstanders, because one thing that I teach the students when I go and I do my speaking piece is that I also talk about being a bystander as being an issue, not just becoming a victim or becoming a potential recruiter or a sex buyer, but we also discuss being a bystander and how that can also impact people. They also practice stop during the play, which I think is amazing. I think oftentimes even as a mom, I've taught my children, like, oh, call 911. But when it's time to call 911, what do we really do? Do we panic? Do we have anxiety, right? So we actually allow the students to come to the stage and practice what they would say to Amanda if they saw that they saw red flags in their friend. So the students are able to practice being upstanders outside of us just talking at them and teaching them how to be upstanders. We also have a red flag poster activity that we practice with the students for them to be able to identify the red flags that they see in Amanda's story, in addition to Danny and Desiree's actions. Let's see, we also do pre and post surveys where we go in and we evaluate what the students already have retained or already know, and then we do a post survey to see what they have been able to retain. Our program runs either over a course of 2 days, 3 days, 90 minutes, or 60 minutes. We have reached over 16, I should have told you to go to the next slide, but you did already. We have reached over 16,000 students since 2016, in addition to 2,000 students this year. 3 high schools in San Diego have had No More come to their school and speak to all grade levels, so they've been able to train all 9th through 12th schools. And I'm going to have to step over here to read these quotes because they're not on my iPad. So some of the quotes that our students have left on our exit slips, which I'll talk about in just a bit, or these have been quotes that have been spoken directly to our teaching artists or to me as one of the facilitators for the program. Thank you for informing us that this happens to boys and men. There's a particular story that we show about Mark, where a lot of students don't believe that this happens to just anyone. So we're really clear that human trafficking can happen to just anyone, anywhere, around any place. So not to try and stereotype people or areas or races, ethnicities, things of that nature, to say that it only happens to a certain type of people. So they were very thankful for that. I didn't know it happens in San Diego where my friends and I hang out. Now I will pay attention more. I never really thought it was that bad. I just thought she loved him. I mean, she was smiling. She was smiling online and wearing nice clothes and appeared happy. This came from one of our inner city students that were at San Diego High. And I thought that was an interesting perspective to have. As far as the program being survivor informed, as everyone has mentioned, as the program is important to be survivor informed because it validates the program, it impacts the program, and when you have stories and perspectives of survivors, it allows the students to know that this is a real situation that's happening to everyone. Students are required to fill out exit slips, so this is one way that we count our students in addition to have them self-report. We believe that self-reporting is huge because once you get the education, the awareness, you're able to see the red signs, the warning flag, the red signs, and the red flags. You're able to self-report and say, "Hey, I do need to talk to someone in a safe and trusted adult." We instill safe and trusted adult conversation to them, and we also instill caring and curious questions, so that they're able to ask their friends caring and curious questions or ask an adult curious questions, so that they're able to get to the support of needing that safe space to heal or help a friend heal. Through that, we have on that exit slip, there's 3 questions. Either do I need to ask help for a friend, ask help for myself, or I don't have any questions at all. And out of this year alone, we've had 111 students self-report. And so I think that's huge, personally, because I think one of the hardest things for a youth to do is see that they're vulnerable, to see that there's red flags around them, to see that there's things happening, and say there's something I can actually do to help someone or help myself. So for 111 students to self-report, I think was huge. And I'll talk a little bit more about implementation as a panel. Thank you.
And so now, like she mentioned, we're going to go into the actual panel. So I'm going to invite Dr. Carly up and take over that discussion. So.
Thank you, everyone. Can we give them another round of applause? As an organizer, you're always trying to balance, right, like content and presenters and like time management. So we have prepared 4 questions for the panelists, but given our time, I don't want to go into our short break as we transition to discussion, our roundtable discussions, because I believe is the heart of these meetings. So I'm going to, let's start with 2 questions, so we have a little bit of time. We'll go into 3rd question, and I also want to open the space for maybe 5 short minutes to give you the space to ask questions before we go into break, and then as you come back, you'll get to converse with one of the presenters today. So Riley is going to keep us in check with time. And so I want to start with this question. You have already given us kind of the big picture of each of your programs that you facilitate, that you direct, that you implement, but hopefully these questions will allow you to go a little bit deeper, as Ebony mentioned. So in your experience, what is 1 or 2 of the most effective approaches for engaging youth in this process of teaching them human trafficking prevention education? And how do you ensure this information resonates with them? So if you'd like to.
So you talk about question 4, right? Because the way you read it kind of threw me off a little bit. So question 4, right?
Yes.
Yes, okay. So in regards to how I engage youth in prevention education is, one is I go in and I speak from a holistic way. So when we go into schools, in my opinion, you never know when you're speaking to 400 students what side of the field they could potentially fall on when it comes to human trafficking, especially when we go into an inner city school. And so for me, I like to paint the picture that no one is exempt from potentially falling into the life of human trafficking, no matter what side it may be on. And this is to create a safe space for all students and not just focus on one particular type of student. And so for me, I provide the young men, as well as anyone who may identify with anything else, to talk about consent, to talk about things that are not appropriate as far as language or locker room talk or high-fiving about certain things. I try to have a conversation with them about the grooming process of becoming a sex buyer, the grooming process of potentially becoming a trafficker, right? And plant the seed that knowing that some people don't just fall into this life, that is a process. And so how can we prevent them from becoming anything when it comes to human trafficking and not just that victim? So in having a holistic conversation versus, because in my opinion, from hearing from the DA, from hearing from several people here in the county, the reason why this issue still exists is because of demand. And so until we begin to provide prevention education to the demand side of things, I don't think we're going to get in front of this issue.
Yeah, and I think I would use the word holistic in a different way to say, which is similar to what I was saying earlier, is that kids are going through a lot of things, and that human trafficking is one issue that doesn't need to be siloed. It can be connected to the whole world that they're experiencing. Because what if, thinking about those response cards, a kid doesn't have a question about trafficking, but they are on the brink of considering joining a gang. Some of the vulnerabilities to trafficking are the same ones to getting involved in gang activity or drug abuse, substance abuse. And so we like to have that conversation as comprehensively as we can. And with that, it means we have to be super relational in the space. So our teaching artists and our actors, every time we have a breakout and we go into moments of dialogue, all the actors go out and converse. And we're prompting everybody to talk to each other. It's this big relational, empathy building, and immersive storytelling experience. And yeah, we think it's working.
Yes to everything they said. I think one of the things that we really talk to our educators who are going to be giving the curriculum is how do you create a safe and safe space and a brave space? Because nothing's going to get through unless they feel safe. And you create an environment where they feel brave to share. Are you validating them? Are you ensuring that the students around them with ground rules in their curriculum? Are the students also helping them to feel safe? And are you honoring that? I think one of the other things too is real life scenarios. So often we show videos and I love like with Zion's story and No More, they look like this is a normal scenario. They're like, oh, I didn't realize, like they seemed happy, or like this, we didn't see this. And I think a lot of times when we do curriculum or we watch videos, they see, oh, that's a bad person, this is a good person, because we kind of build it up that way. And like climactically, and then they say, oh yeah, I would be able to figure out that that's a bad person because we can all tell. But then in real life scenarios, they don't realize that, and they think, oh, well, but I would have known. And so we also talk about the inner voice and how that affects them, because if you don't know what to look for, if your body's saying something, they may miss what's in front of them. And so being able to teach those red flags, but trusting them to trust their inner voice, and showing them those real life scenarios, I think is also really key in an effective approach.
Yeah, and I would say yes to what everyone else said, as well as with regard to direct program facilitation, research. So keeping up with the times, asking either your children, your nieces, your nephews, people in your life, what are things that are popular or what's important to them right now? And how can you relate your programming to those topics? There's, language is very fluid and language changes, and there are so many terms now that I personally couldn't tell you how many times I've had to ask for clarification on what skibbity toilet means. But yeah, with regard to that, just trying to research and make sure that you are aware of what has changed from when you were the age of the group that you're facilitating with till now. As well as having flexibility. With regard to Project Roots, our toolkit is a living document. So if there's something that you are facilitating within programming and it's not working, try to change your methods. Try to see if there's a way or if there's an interest point in the youth that you're working with, and pivot. There's nothing wrong with pivoting and changing and seeing what works and taking out what doesn't.
Yeah, are we doing another question? Yes. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
Thank you.
There it is.
Sorry about that. My next question is, what is the most significant barrier you have encountered in implementing your program, and then how you've been able to address it?
Funding, let's talk about that. Funding is always going to be a grapple, but I think that, with our team working hard together, applying for grants and looking out there and seeing who is able to provide funding to our program has been great with our team, the CGR. In regards to protocols, I believe that the AB 122.7 and just the mandated reporting around suspicion of sexual exploitation should be enforced a lot more, especially at schools. But I understand that there's schools are struggling with funding, with staff being overworked and underpaid and things like that. But these students are still being impacted. These students are still being harmed. So I do believe that there should be something in place where we're trying to figure out how do we make the protocol actual recommendation to where you can cover the fact that you found a student that has suspicions. We did approach that student. We had a conversation with the student, and we're making sure that the student is actually getting the support that they actually need, right? So I think that that's something that should be in And we've been trying by having site visits, having conversation, talking about the laws, talking about the policies, letting them know about different self-reportings at the other schools, that this is actually an active issue, and talking to the head counselors. We've also been doing site visits where we go to the school and talk to the whole staff for about 20 minutes, encouraging the staff to talk to us so that we're able to understand their culture and what they need in order to bring our program to their school.
Yeah, I would add to funding that funding is a moving target too. So it's like a school approaches us and they're like, you had a scholarship last year, and we're like, but we don't this year. And so there's just there's a patchwork that we're kind of trying to piece together, and they need consistent implementation. They need consistent partnership, and so which I think speaks to it needs to come from the school level on a in enforcement and through funding. If schools don't have the funds, districts don't have the funds, and they're not enforcing AB 1227. I think I would also add that we as providers can be more strategic in looking at together and working together and looking at okay, where is everybody at? How can we work together to make sure that we are, not seeing the same youth, but also going to places that we haven't been before, certain parts of the community that haven't had as much outreach, and how can we really be working as a team to do that?
I'll also say funding, but also piggybacking on what Catherine said, being able to know if they're I'm familiar with these programs, and so if I am reaching out to a school and I hear that they have these needs, that's something that the more we know about what our programs are doing, the more we can meet those clients, those partners at where they're at, and fulfill those needs, even if it's not your own program. That's okay, because the ultimate goal is that staff are educated and students or staff are trained and students are educated. And so on that, with the funding, just the funding, but tying with that, with 1227, it's an unfunded state mandate. So we have staff all the time and school administrators who say, okay, so what happens if we don't do this? And reality is no one's going to be searching and coming to your schools and saying, are you actually doing this? I always say, but they could. Things could change. You never know. And so having accountability has been a barrier. And as they had said to the county office, they can't enforce schools to do something. They can be of support, but they can't enforce. And with that, sometimes having I call a top-down approach is it just takes a lot longer. So that's a barrier, and that's getting everyone, the school administration on board, getting the superintendent on board, the school board approving the curriculum and enforcing it into all the schools. That can take a while, and so an approach is what we kind of did with the San Diego Trafficking Prevention Collective is, all right, well, we're just going to go to the side. We're going to go to individual schools, charter schools. Where is there an easy way in just to kind of infiltrate everywhere? And so those are kind of some of the ones that, some of the barriers that we've seen and how we've kind of tried to approach them.
I will also say 100% funding, but also getting youth in the door, marketing to students so that they don't just see, okay, yes, this is a human trafficking awareness prevention program. What does that have to do with me? We see a lot, or I've seen, the quotes of the students that have participated in these programs and what their thoughts are afterwards, but to get them in the door, that's probably one of the biggest barriers that I've seen myself. There are two ways that I facilitate programming. One way is with a group that's already present, that's already part of a larger organization and a larger group. And then one where we have to market to students to get them to sign up. And the one where we have to market to students to get them to sign up, finding a way to make the program appealing to them so that they want to not only start attending, but continue to attend and continue to try to learn, has been a barrier and a challenge.
I have one more question. And so if we can just, we're running out of time, but I think this is important, just given the audience here and just thinking about our discussions during the roundtable discussion time, I feel this is appropriate. So, and then you'll have just like 30 seconds to answer it. So looking ahead, what one institutional or policy change would be, would enhance the prevention education here in San Diego for youth and then beyond?
I think I kind of said it a little bit, but in regards to the mandate, like how can we, rather it's around mandated reporting, the AB1, the AB policy is something, right? And how can we create funding to support these schools because they don't have it in order to get these programs into these schools so that they can get the awareness that they need.
That's what I would say. The accountability around AB 1227 coupled with the funding, that those two need to be working together.
And I would say that looking upstream, that it's not just mandated for 7th and 12th grade, but that it's mandated earlier, and it becomes more common in a common practice that we do.
And also making this education more accessible to have more reach throughout San Diego, because there's a limited amount of areas and places where we can provide this education, and there are a lot more areas that are in need of this kind of programming.
Thank you. So I just want to give just maybe 2 minutes. If anyone has a question, maybe we can do fast 2 questions. I want to open the space for the audience to raise a question so the panelists can answer it, if any. Oh, okay. Sure.
My question is, has any of you seen an increase of students being taken from schools for sex trafficking? Sex trafficking. There, I got it out.
Starts with that. I don't know. I can speak loud as well.
For the video.
Yeah, for the video. I think that's a great question. Thank you for asking that. I think we tend to hear that question a lot when I do trainings, like with adult or with staff. They're like, "Well, no one's missing, but students are still here, so I don't think trafficking is really happening in our school." But the reality is, they are still living at home. They are still attending school. Sometimes they're missing school more often, maybe on Mondays and Fridays, because they've had a long weekend, but they don't have to be missing or being removed from the school for them to be exploited. But the red flags you want to look for is, how often are they missing school? Are they talking about traveling often? Where are they traveling to? And just some of those red flags. But I don't think we've seen many students being taken or outside. If that was your question too, about taking outside of about being removed. Maybe you have something to share with that.
What I was going to offer is that what we hear is that there's more recruitment happening in school. But as far as the taken pieces, it also would be hard for us to get that information as outside providers. But yeah, the recruitment in schools and facilities, because we work in foster care facilities, and it's just casually happening, honestly, in those settings, just really openly happening.
Anyone else? No more questions? All right. Thank you, everyone.